The space station called Harmony's Edge floated in the darkness between three great empires. It was a place where different species came to talk, to argue, and sometimes to make peace. The station was huge, with sections built for each species that lived there. Some areas had thick, hot air for species that came from jungle planets. Other areas were cold and dry. The human section had gardens and soft lights that reminded them of Earth. Lieutenant Una Park had lived on this station for 18 months. She was a cultural liaison officer, which meant her job was to help humans and aliens understand each other. It was not an easy job. Most species in the galaxy thought humans were strange. Humans had no claws. They had no fangs. Their skin was soft and easy to cut. Many aliens wondered how such weak creatures had ever left their home planet. But Una knew something that most aliens did not understand. Humans were not weak. They were different. And sometimes, different was more dangerous than strong. Today, Una walked through the station's main corridor toward the conference hall. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. She passed windows that showed the stars outside, bright points of light against endless black. She had seen this view 1,000 times, but it still made her heart beat a little faster. Space was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. She was thinking about the meeting ahead when her friend caught up with her. Ensign Taiho Kim was young, only 24 years old, with a worried look on his face that never seemed to go away. "Una, wait," he said, walking fast to match her steps. "Did you hear the news?" Ifankorith brought his family to the station. Una stopped walking. "His family? Are you sure?" "His mate and his cub. A young one, maybe 3 cycles old." This was strange news. The Vreth never brought their children to diplomatic meetings. The Vreth were a species of predators, tall and powerful, covered in gray fur. They looked like wolves that had learned to walk on 2 legs. They had 6 eyes, sharp claws, and teeth that could bite through metal. On their homeworld, they were the top hunters. Nothing could kill them. Nothing could challenge them. They believed that showing your family to strangers was showing weakness. It was like saying, "Here is something I love. Here is something you could hurt to hurt me." So why had Korath brought his cub? "He's sending a message," Una said slowly. "He wants everyone to know he's not afraid of us. He's so confident that he doesn't think we could ever threaten his child." Taio nodded. "That's what I thought too. But Una, the negotiations are not going well. The Vreth want control of the jump gates near the Pallid border. If they get them, they could cut off our trade routes." "I know." Una started walking again. "That's why we need to be careful. The Vreth respect strength. If we look scared, they will push harder. If we push back too much, they might decide war is easier than talking." The conference hall was a large round room with a high ceiling. Different species sat at different tables arranged in a circle. The Vreth delegation sat at the largest table because they had demanded it. Ifankorath was at the center, a massive figure covered in silver-gray fur that was marked with old scars. His 6 eyes watched everything. His claws rested on the table, long and curved and sharp. Beside him sat his mate, Lady Sarath. She was smaller than Korath, but no less dangerous. Her fur was darker, almost black, and her eyes never stopped moving. She was watching for threats. She was always watching. Una did not see the cub. He was probably in their quarters, watched by Vreth guards. The meeting began. Representatives from each species spoke about borders, trade routes, and military movements. The Vreth ambassador made demands. The human ambassador made counteroffers. The Pallid Collective, a species of pale, thin creatures with too many joints, complained about everyone. Una translated when needed and took notes. She watched Korath's face, trying to read his emotions. It was hard. Vreth did not show feelings the way humans did, but she noticed small things. The way his ears moved, the way his claws tapped the table when he was impatient. He was not happy with how the talks were going. That was bad. An unhappy Vreth was a dangerous Vreth. 3 hours into the meeting, something happened. A soft alarm began to sound. It was not the loud emergency alarm that meant the station was under attack. It was a different sound, a gentle beeping that made everyone look up. A Vreth guard burst into the room. He ran straight to Korath and whispered something in the Vreth language. Yuna could not understand the words, but she understood the look on Korath's face. Fear. Pure, animal fear. She had never seen a Vreth look afraid before. Kara stood up so fast that his chair flew backward. He said something to Sereth, and her face changed too. Her eyes went wide. Her claws came out, sharp and ready for blood. "What's happening?" the human ambassador asked. Korath turned to look at him. When he spoke, his voice was rough and dangerous. "My son, my cub, he is gone. He has escaped his room." The room went silent. A Vreth cub was loose on the station. A young predator, curious and wild, with claws that could kill and instincts that were built for hunting. He would be scared in this strange place. He would be confused. And a scared, confused Vreth cub was very dangerous. "We will help you find him," Yuna said quickly. "The station has sensors. We can track his heat signature." Korath looked at her like she was an insect. "If any human hurts my son," he said slowly, "I will kill every human on this station. Do you understand?" Yuna did not look away from his 6 eyes. "We will not hurt him. We will help you find him." But even as she said the words, she felt a cold fear in her stomach. The human section of the station was not designed for predators. If the cub went there, if he met a human who panicked and ran, running triggered the Vreth hunting instinct. Everyone knew that. She just hoped that whoever found the cub would be smart enough to stay still. Specialist Jia Moon was having a quiet day. She worked in the station's engineering department, fixing machines and checking power systems. It was boring work, but she liked it. Machines were simple. They did not argue or complain. They either worked or they did not, and if they did not work, she could fix them. Today was her day off. She had decided to spend it in the botanical garden, a small room filled with plants from Earth. There were ferns and flowers, grass and small trees. The air smelled like soil and green growing things. Artificial sunlight came from panels in the ceiling, warm and gentle on her skin. Jia sat on the grass with her back against a tree. She was reading a book on her tablet, a story about a detective solving crimes in Old Seoul. It was a peaceful moment. The kind of moment that was rare on a space station full of aliens and politics. She heard a sound. It was soft, like something moving through the ferns. Jia looked up from her tablet. Maybe it was one of the small cleaning robots that kept the garden tidy. They sometimes made rustling sounds as they moved through the plants, but this sound was different. It was heavier, more careful. Jia put down her tablet and listened. The sound came again, closer this time. Something was definitely in the garden with her. Then the station's alarm system spoke. The voice was calm but serious. "Warning. Vreth juvenile detected in Sector 7 human. All personnel advised to evacuate. Predator protocols engaged." Jihee's heart jumped in her chest. A Vreth juvenile. A cub. Here in the garden. She should run. That was the smart thing to do. The protocol was clear. If you saw a Vreth predator, you should leave the area immediately. Do not make eye contact. Do not make sudden movements. Just go. But Jia did not run. She stayed very still. She had grown up on a farm in Gangwon Province, in the mountains of Korea. Her family had raised animals. Cows, pigs, chickens. Sometimes wild animals came down from the mountains. Deer, wild boar. Once, a young bear had wandered into their field. Her grandmother had taught her what to do. Do not run. Running makes you look like prey. Stay calm. Stay small. Let the animals see that you are not a threat. The ferns in front of her moved. A small face appeared between the leaves. The Vreth cub was about the size of a large dog. His fur was silver gray, soft and thick. 4 of his 6 eyes were open and watching her. The other 2 were still developing, covered with thin skin. He was young, very young, and he was scared. GA could see it in the way he held his body. His ears were flat against his head. His tail was tucked low. He was breathing fast, and his small claws dug into the dirt like he was ready to run or fight. But there was something else. He was limping. His front left paw was held up, not touching the ground. It was hurt. "Hey there, little one," Jihei said softly. Her voice was gentle, the same voice she used when she talked to frightened animals on the farm. "You're lost, aren't you?" The cub made a sound. It was a growl, low and rough. Jihei felt the sound in her chest, a vibration that made her body want to run away. She had read about Vreth growls. They were designed to trigger fear in other species, to make prey animals freeze or flee. She did not freeze. She did not flee. Instead, she slowly sat down on the grass. She made herself small, pulling her knees up to her chest. She looked at the ground, not at the cub's eyes. Direct eye contact was a challenge in many predator species. She did not want to challenge him. "It's okay," she said. "I'm not going to hurt you. You're safe here." The cub stopped growling. He tilted his head to one side, confused. This was not how prey was supposed to act. Prey was supposed to run. Prey was supposed to scream. This human was doing neither of those things. He took a small step forward, then stopped. His injured paw touched the ground, and he made a small sound of pain. Jie saw the wound now. There was a cut on his paw, probably from sharp metal. He had hurt himself while escaping from his room. The cut was not deep, but it was bleeding, and it clearly hurt him. "You're hurt," Jihei said. "Poor thing. That must be painful." She reached slowly into her pocket and pulled out her water canteen. Vreth cubs, she remembered from her xenobiology training, had fast metabolisms. They got hot easily. They were always thirsty. She opened the canteen and poured a little water into the cap. Then she placed it on the ground between them. "Here," she said. "Water. You must be thirsty." The cub looked at the water. His nose twitched. Jie could see him thinking, trying to decide if this was a trap. Then thirst won over fear. He crept forward, still limping, and lowered his head to drink. His tongue was rough and purple, and he drank the water in quick, desperate laps. Jihei did not move. She let him drink. When the cap was empty, the cub looked up at her. His eyes were different now. Less scared. More curious. He made a soft sound, not a growl, but something gentler. "A question, maybe. You want more?" Jie poured more water. The cub drank again. This time, when he finished, he did not back away. He stayed close, looking at her with his 4 open eyes. His tail moved slightly, not quite wagging, but not tucked anymore either. Jie slowly reached out her hand, palm up, fingers relaxed. She did not try to touch him. She just let him see her hand, let him smell her scent. The cub sniffed her fingers. His nose was cold and wet. He sniffed for a long time, learning her smell. Deciding if she was friend or enemy. Then he did something that no Vreth had ever done with a human before. He lay down beside her, his small body pressed against her leg. He was warm, warmer than a human, and she could feel his heart beating fast under his fur. He was still scared, but he was also tired. The running and the pain had exhausted him. Ga carefully put her hand on his back. His fur was soft, softer than she expected. She stroked him gently, the way she used to stroke the farm cats when they were scared of thunder. The cub made a sound. It was not a growl. It was more like a purr, deep and rumbling. His eyes began to close. "It's okay," Jihei whispered. "Rest now. You're safe." She looked at his injured paw. The bleeding had slowed, but it needed to be cleaned and wrapped. She tore a strip of cloth from the bottom of her uniform shirt and very carefully, very gently, wrapped it around the wound. The cub did not bite her. He did not scratch her. He just watched her with sleepy eyes and let her help him. When she finished, he put his head down on his paws and fell asleep. Ga sat there in the artificial sunlight. A sleeping predator cub curled up against her leg, and wondered what would happen when the search teams found them. Commander Dongwu Choi had served in the Terran Federation military for 15 years. He had fought pirates near the asteroid belts. He had helped defend human colonies from hostile aliens. He had seen things that would give most people nightmares for the rest of their lives, but he had never been this nervous before. A Vreth cub was missing on his station. The cub's father, Haifang Korath, had promised to kill every human on board if his son was harmed. And the cub had gone into the human section, where the people were soft and unprotected and completely unprepared to deal with a young predator. Dongwu stood in the security center, watching screens that showed different parts of the station. His team had found the cub's trail. Broken ventilation covers, scratch marks on walls. The young Vreth had crawled through maintenance tunnels until he reached Sector 7, the botanical garden. "We have a human in that sector," one of his officers said. "Specialist G.A. Moon, Engineering Department." She was there when the lockdown started. Dongwu felt his stomach drop. "Get me her communicator." "We tried, sir." No response. "Either her device is broken, or she's not answering." "Or she's dead," another officer muttered. "She's not dead," Dongwu said, but he was not sure he believed it. A scared Vreth cub could kill a human in seconds. One swipe of those claws, one bite from those fangs, and it would be over. He grabbed his weapon from the rack. It was a stun gun, designed to knock out targets without killing them. His team grabbed their own weapons and followed him out of the security center. They moved fast through the station corridors. Other humans had already evacuated the area. The halls were empty and quiet, lit by soft emergency lights. Lieutenant Yuna Park met them at the entrance to Sector 7. Her face was pale but determined. "The Vreth are coming," she said. "Korath and his mate. They're 5 minutes behind us." "We need to get the human out before they arrive," Dongwu said. "If she's still alive." "She's alive until I see proof that she's not. Let's go." The botanical garden was dark. Someone had turned off the artificial sunlight, probably hoping the darkness would calm the cub. Dongwu switched on his helmet light and led his team through the entrance. The garden was not large, but it was full of plants that created shadows and hiding places. Ferns brushed against Dongwu's legs as he walked. The air smelled like earth and leaves, a smell that reminded him of home. He heard something, a soft sound like humming. He raised his hand, telling his team to stop. They all listened. It was definitely humming. A human voice, gentle and quiet, singing a simple melody. It was a lullaby, the kind of song that mothers sang to children. Dongwu moved toward the sound, pushing through a cluster of tall ferns. What he saw on the other side made him stop completely. Specialist G.A. Moon was sitting on the grass with her back against a tree. Her uniform was dirty, and a strip of cloth had been torn from the bottom of her shirt. Her tablet lay forgotten beside her, and curled up against her leg. Sleeping peacefully was the Vreth cub. Ga looked up when she heard them. She put a finger to her lips, telling them to be quiet. Then she whispered, He's tired. He was so scared. Please, don't wake him. Dongwu stared at her. He had expected blood. He had expected screaming. He had expected a dead body and a wild predator. Instead, he found a young woman petting a sleeping cub like it was a house cat. Moon, he said quietly, do you know what that thing could do to you? His name is Viken, Ga said. At least, I think that's what the security announcement said. He hurt his paw. I wrapped it for him. He was so thirsty. He's a predator. A wrath predator. He's a baby. A scared, lost, hurt baby. Ga stroked the cub's fur gently. He just needed someone to be kind to him. One of the security officers laughed, a nervous sound. She's lost her mind. Be quiet, Yuna said sharply. She was looking at Ga and the cub with something like wonder on her face. This is incredible. Do you understand what's happening here? A human and a wraith bonding like this? It's never happened before. The parents are coming, Dongwu said. We need to move her out of here before they arrive. If Kara sees a human touching his cub, no. Yuna grabbed his arm. They need to see this. Don't you understand? If they see a human protecting their child, caring for their child, this could change everything, or it could get Moon killed. That's my choice, Jihei said. Her voice was calm and steady. I'm not leaving him. When he wakes up and his parents aren't here, he'll be scared again. He trusts me now. I won't break that trust. Dongwu looked at her for a long moment. She was young, probably 26 or 27. She had a round face and kind eyes. She did not look like a hero. She looked like someone who fixed machines and read books in gardens, but there was something in her eyes. A quiet strength. A refusal to abandon something that needed her. Fine, he said finally. We stay. But if that cub wakes up angry, we're pulling you out whether you like it or not. They waited. The minutes passed slowly. The cub slept on, making small sounds in his dreams. Ga kept stroking his fur and humming her lullaby. Then they heard footsteps. Heavy, fast footsteps that made the floor shake. The wraith had arrived. Haifang, Korath burst through the garden entrance like a force of nature. He was enormous, his gray fur bristling with fear and rage. His 6 eyes scanned the garden, searching for his son. Behind him came Lady Sereth, equally fierce, her claws extended and ready for blood. Where is he? Korath roared. Where's my son? Here. Yuna stepped forward, putting herself between the wraith parents and the security team. He's here. He's safe. But you need to see this. You need to come quietly and see. Korath pushed past her. He shoved through the ferns, his claws tearing leaves and branches. Then he stopped. He saw his son, sleeping peacefully against a human's leg. He saw the bandage on the cub's paw. He saw the human woman looking up at him without fear. Lady Sereth appeared beside him. She saw the same thing. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The cub stirred. His eyes opened. He saw his father and made a happy chirping sound. The sound wraith cubs made when they were safe and content. But he did not immediately run to his parents. First, he looked up at Ga. He rubbed his head against her hand. He made the chirping sound again, as if he was introducing her to his family. Then he bounded to his father, chattering in the wraith language, his tail wagging. His fear completely gone. Korath caught his son and held him close. His eyes were still fixed on Ga. You, he said. His voice was rough and strange. You protected him. Ga stood up slowly. Her legs were stiff from sitting so long. He was scared and hurt. I helped him. That's all. That is not all. Lady Sereth stepped forward. You could have run. You could have used him as a hostage. You could have hurt him to protect yourself. Instead, you cared for him. He's just a child, Jihei said simply. A child needed help. I helped. Sareth looked at her for a long moment. Then she did something that made everyone in the garden gasp. She lowered her head and showed her throat. Among the Vreth, this was the highest sign of respect. It was a gesture reserved for great warriors, for leaders, for those who had earned the deepest honor. No Vreth had ever shown this gesture to a human. You are Pack, Sareth said. The words were heavy with meaning. You protected the cub. You are Pack. Korath was silent. His 6 eyes moved between his son and the human woman who had saved him. Something was changing in his face, something old and hard cracking to show something new beneath. Yuna watched it happen, and she knew that the galaxy would never be the same. The news spread through Harmony's Edge like fire through dry grass. Within hours, everyone on the station knew what had happened in the botanical garden. A human woman had saved the Vreth High Fang's cub. Lady Sareth had called her Pack. The most feared predators in the galaxy had shown respect to a member of the species they called prey. Nobody knew what to think. In the human section, people talked in excited whispers. Some thought Jihei was a hero. Others thought she was lucky to be alive. A few thought she was crazy for not running when she had the chance. In the Vreth section, the reaction was more complicated. Some warriors were angry. How could Lady Sareth show throat to a human? Humans were weak. Humans were food. This was shameful, but others were thoughtful. They had been taught all their lives that humans were inferior, that they had no courage, no strength, no honor. Yet this human woman had shown all three. She had stayed calm when any Vreth would expect panic. She had shown kindness when she could have shown cruelty. She had protected a child that was not her own. What did that mean? What did it say about humans? What did it say about everything the Vreth believed? High Fang Korath sat alone in his quarters, thinking these same thoughts. His son Veckan was sleeping in the next room, tired from his adventure. The wound on his paw had been properly treated by the station's medical team. He would be fine. He would have a small scar, a mark to remember his adventure in the human garden. But Korath knew that the scar on his son's paw was nothing compared to the scar on his own understanding of the universe. He had believed that humans were prey. He had believed this his entire life. His father had taught him. His teachers had taught him. Every book, every story, every lesson had said the same thing. Humans were soft and weak and barely worth noticing. Yet a soft, weak human had protected his son. She had wrapped his wound with cloth from her own clothing. She had given him water from her own supply. She had sung to him and stroked his fur and made him feel safe in a strange and frightening place. And when Korath had arrived, ready to kill anyone who had touched his child, she had looked at him without fear. She had not begged. She had not cried. She had stood her ground and said, simply, that she had helped because his son needed help. What kind of prey did that? The answer was clear, even if it was hard to accept. Humans were not prey. They were something else, something the Vreth had never encountered before. They were creatures who could show kindness to those who might kill them. They were creatures who would protect the children of their enemies. This was not weakness. Korath was beginning to understand that this was a different kind of strength. There was a knock at his door. He growled permission to enter. Lieutenant Yuna Park stepped into the room. She was small, much smaller than a Vreth female, with black hair and serious eyes. She moved carefully, respectfully, but she did not cower or cringe. "Hi, Fang," she said. "I wanted to check on your son. Is he well?" "He sleeps." Korath studied her face. "You are the cultural liaison, the one who works with my delegation." "Yes, you knew about this." "The woman in the garden. You told your security team to let us see her with my son." Yuna nodded. I thought it was important. Why? Because I wanted you to see who we really are. Yuna's voice was calm and clear. Your people think we are weak because we don't have claws or fangs. But we have other things. Compassion, empathy, the ability to care for creatures that are different from us. These are the traits of prey animals, Korath said. But his voice was uncertain. No, these are the traits of social animals. Pack animals. Yuna met his 6 eyes without flinching. We survived on our homeworld, not because we were the strongest or the fastest. We survived because we worked together. We helped each other. We adopted orphan children from other families, other tribes, even other species. Our ancestors raised wolves as their own pack members. We are creatures who build bonds. Korath was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Your woman, Moon, she called my son a baby. She said he was scared and hurt, and that was why she helped him." Yes, any Vreth mother would have done the same for her own cub. But Moon is not his mother. She is not even his species. Why would she care? Yuna smiled slightly. That's the question, isn't it? I think the answer is why your people should stop thinking of us as prey. Before Korath could respond, another knock came at the door. This time, it was Lady Sereth, and with her was Ga Moon herself. Ga looked nervous. She was still wearing her torn uniform, and there were grass stains on her knees. But she stood straight and met Korath's eyes. Sereth spoke first. "I have brought the human to speak with you, my mate. She asked to see Reckon before he sleeps." "She asked to see my son?" Korath's voice was sharp. "Why?" Ga stepped forward. "I wanted to make sure he was okay. When I left him, he was confused. He didn't understand why I had to go. I didn't want him to think I abandoned him." Korath stared at her. This small human, this creature without claws or fangs or any natural weapon, was worried about his son's feelings. She was concerned that a Vreth cub might feel abandoned. "You." He stopped. Started again. "You care about his emotions." "Of course. He's young. Young creatures feel things deeply. I didn't want him to be sad. He is sleeping now." "I know. But maybe I could leave something for him? For when he wakes up?" Ga reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a toy, a soft fabric ball decorated with colorful patterns. "I got this from the human trade shop. Human children play with these. I thought maybe Vikin might like it." Korath took the toy. It was light and soft, filled with something that made a gentle rattling sound when he shook it. It was clearly designed for young hands to hold and throw and chase. "This is a gift," he said slowly. "For my son." "Yes. Why?" Ga looked at him with those strange human eyes, flat and forward-facing like all prey animals, yet somehow not afraid. "Because I like him. He's sweet and brave in his own way, running off to explore a strange place when he was so small." She smiled. "He reminds me of myself when I was young." Korath did not know what to say. In Vreth culture, gifts for children were serious things. They created bonds between families. They implied obligations and connections that lasted for generations. This human had just offered to create such a bond with his house. Sereth spoke quietly. "My mate, this gift, given freely, without expectation of return. It is an honor." Korath knew she was right. He looked at the small fabric ball in his clawed hand, at the human woman standing before him, at everything he had believed about her species crumbling around him. "I accept this gift," he said finally. "I accept it on behalf of my son, who cannot speak for himself. And I give you something in return." He reached to his belt and drew a knife. It was a hunting knife, the blade curved and sharp, the handle wrapped in leather from an animal he had killed himself many years ago. It was one of his most precious possessions, He held it out to GA. This is a Wrath hunting knife. It is given only to warriors of the highest honor. I give it to you, GA Moon, protector of my son. GA took the knife carefully. It was heavy in her hand. I don't know what to say. Say nothing. You have already said everything that matters with your actions. Korath straightened to his full height. You are pack now. My pack, my family. What threatens you, threatens us. What helps you, helps us. This is the bond you have created. Yuna watched from the side of the room, her heart beating fast. She knew she was witnessing history. She knew that this moment, this exchange between a predator warrior and a human engineer, would change the relationship between their species forever. The negotiations would succeed. She was suddenly certain of that, because Korath had seen the truth, and the truth was that humans were not prey. They were something much more dangerous. They were friends. 6 months had passed since the day in the botanical garden. Specialist GA Moon was no longer a specialist. She had been promoted twice, first to senior engineer, then to cultural exchange officer. Her new job was not fixing machines. It was helping humans and Wrath understand each other. She stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic cruiser Eternal Spring, watching stars slide past the windows. The ship was traveling toward Earth, carrying the first official Wrath cultural delegation in history. That had all happened so fast. After the negotiations on Harmony's Edge, things had changed in ways nobody expected. Haifang Korath had returned to Wrath Prime and told his story to the Council of Fangs. He told them about the human woman who had protected his son. He told them about the gift she had given, freely, with no expectation of return. He told them about the courage she had shown, the kindness, the strange and wonderful behavior that did not fit any category the Wrath had for other species. The Council had been skeptical at first. Humans, worthy of respect? It was hard to believe, but Korath had brought proof. He had brought recordings from the station's security cameras. The Council watched a small human woman sit calmly while a Wrath cub growled at her. They watched her give water to the cub, bandage his wound, stroke his fur while he slept. They watched her stand before Korath himself and show no fear. The recordings spread across Wrath Prime. Soon, everyone was talking about the human who had protected the Haifang's son. Some called her a miracle. Others called her a mystery. But everyone agreed that she was not what they had expected from a human. Questions began to arise. If this human was different from what the Wrath believed, were other humans different too? Was everything they knew about the prey species wrong? The Council of Fangs made a decision. They would send a delegation to Earth. They would see for themselves what humans were really like. And they insisted that GA Moon be part of the welcome committee. Now she was here, on a ship full of Wrath warriors and diplomats, traveling to show them her home world. It was strange. A year ago, she had been a quiet engineer who liked to read books in gardens. Now she was a bridge between two species. The door behind her opened. She turned to see a familiar face. GA friend. Veckan ran across the observation deck on 4 legs, his tail wagging wildly. He was bigger now, nearly twice the size he had been in the garden. His eyes were fully developed, all 6 of them bright with excitement. But he was still young, still a cub, still full of energy and curiosity. He skidded to a stop in front of her and rose up on his back legs, putting his front paws on her shoulders. His tongue licked her face. Veckan! His mother's voice came from the doorway. Lady Sarath walked into the room, her dark fur smooth and well-groomed. Do not jump on pack members. It is rude, but I am happy to see her. Veckan protested. You can be happy without knocking her over. GA laughed and hugged the cub. His fur was warm and soft against her arms. It's okay. I missed you too, Veckan. The cub made his happy chirping sound and nuzzled against her neck. Then he pulled back and showed her his front paw. Look, the scar is still there. I show everyone. I tell them about the kind human who wrapped my wound. G.A. looked at the small scar on his paw pad. It had healed well, leaving only a thin white line. Does it hurt? No. Father says scars are marks of honor. He says this scar is the most honorable one I will ever have, because it reminds me that kindness can come from unexpected places. Lady Sareth had moved to stand beside G.A., looking out at the stars. My mate has changed, she said quietly. The whole empire has changed. Because of what you did. I didn't do anything special. I just helped a scared child. That is what makes it special. You did not think. You did not calculate advantage. You simply saw someone who needed help, and you helped. This is... Sareth paused, searching for the right word. This is rare, in my experience. Among my own people, we help our pack, our family. But a stranger? A member of another species? One that we have been taught to see as inferior? Most would not. Humans do, G.A. said. Not always. We're not perfect. But when we see someone suffering, especially a child, most of us feel the need to help. We can't help it. It's just who we are. Then your species is stronger than we knew. Sareth turned to look at her. We Vreth have always measured strength by claws and fangs, by the ability to kill, to dominate, to conquer. But you humans measure strength differently. You measure it by the ability to protect, to nurture, to build bonds across the spaces that divide. Maybe both kinds of strength are important. Perhaps that is what this exchange program will help us discover. Vekin had moved to the window, pressing his nose against the glass. Is that it? Is that Earth? G.A. looked. In the distance, growing larger as they approached, was a blue and green planet wrapped in white clouds. It was beautiful, more beautiful than she had remembered. That's it. That's my home. It looks soft, Vekin said. Lots of water. Lots of green things. It is soft. And wet. And full of life. G.A. smiled. I think you'll like it. There are animals there. All kinds of animals. Some of them are predators like you. Some of them are prey. And some of them are something in between. Will you show me? I'll show you everything. The oceans, the forests, the mountains. The farm where I grew up, where I learned how to help scared animals feel safe. Vekin's tail wagged faster. I want to see the farm. I want to meet the animals. Father says humans make friends with all kinds of creatures. Dogs and cats and horses and birds. Is it true? It's true. We even made friends with some predators. Thousands of years ago, wolves lived in the wild and hunted our ancestors. But then, somehow, we became friends. We worked together. Now dogs are part of our families. They live in our homes and protect our children. Vekin looked at her with wonder in his eyes. You turned predators into pack? We did. Maybe that is your real strength, Sarah said softly. Not the ability to defeat enemies. The ability to turn enemies into friends. The ship continued its journey toward Earth. In a few hours, they would arrive. Vreth warriors would walk on human soil for the first time. They would see human cities and human farms and human families. They would learn that humans were not prey, were not weak, were not inferior. They were different. And different was not less. Different was just different. G.A. put her arm around Vekin's shoulders. The young Vreth leaned against her, warm and trusting. Behind them, Sareth watched with eyes that held no trace of the contempt her species had once felt for humans. Everything had changed because one scared cub had wandered into a garden, and one kind woman had decided not to run. That was the human way. That was their secret weapon. Not guns or bombs or warships. kindness, compassion, the simple, powerful choice to help someone who needed help. The Vreth were about to learn what the rest of the galaxy would eventually discover. Humans were dangerous. Not because they could fight, because they could love. And love, in the end, was the strongest force in the universe. On the observation deck of the Eternal Spring, a human woman and a Vreth cub watched Earth grow larger in the window. Behind them, a Vreth lady smiled a smile that showed her fangs. But meant only warmth. And somewhere in the stars, the galaxy was changing, one act of kindness at a time.